This is to Samir. Today I will speak about the Arabs, the people, and the language. I will divide the history of the Arabs into the Islamic period, the pre-Islamic and the post-Islamic. And I will speak about Arabic as a Semitic language and technically known as a VSO language. If we start with the last era of the Arabic history, or post-Islamic, you have ideologies that dominated the 20th century, like Marxism, Baathism, Nasirism. Marxism in Iraq with someone called Hassan al-Bakr, who was a friend of the Russians, and Baathism with Assad in Syria, and most importantly Nasirism in Egypt with Nasser. But these post-Islamic ideologies fell in 1967. Before Islam, the Arabs used to fight each other for water in the desert, and they have this vendetta mentality, etc. But they had also this procrastinate mentality of saying, Inshallah, we'll do something. Heute Wein, morgen Entscheidung. But let me just try and see what this book has to offer to each reader. Of course, I invite you to get a copy. I'm dedicating it to a Japanese friend called Kenzo Tokunaga. I hope he will see me in one way or another. As I mentioned before, that is just yesterday, there are many prejudices and cliches about Arabs. Are they rough people, violent people, or rich with the big limousine in the windy city? You know, the windy city, Chicago, full of petrodollars, or a Muslim. So there is a confusion between Arab and Muslim. Not all Arabs are Muslims, not all Muslims are Arabs. This is to be cleared from the onset. Non-Arab Muslims like the Iranians, the Turkish, the Nigerians, and now Europeans and Americans, etc. They're Muslims without being Arabs. But there are also some Christian Arabs in the Middle East, in Iraq, in Syria, Egypt, etc., etc. So this should be mentioned from the onset. Arabic is also thought to be the language spoken nowadays, from Mecca to Rabat or Casablanca. But in fact, the things have to be deepened further. So what does this book have to say? To understand the present of the Arabs, we need to go back in their history. And as I said, most Arabs are Muslims, but the pre-Islamic mentality is still there. They procrastinate or postpone positive actions. The Arabic language belongs to the Semitic family, a very important language family which includes Hebrew and Aramaic. I once lectured at British Columbia in Canada, and I said that maybe, or for some people, Arabic is a problematic language, but the Jewish professor said, but sir, Arabic and Hebrew are the language of the sacred books. He defended both his language and Arabic, so that was fair. Now, the pre-Islamic era was dominated by these fighting tribes in the desert of the Arabian Peninsula, but they were great poets. ولي من دونكم آلون سيد نعم لسن وأرقط زغلول وعرفاء جيئان. Who is the nice guy who can explain this poem for me? It's in fact, although I'm Arab, but this Arabic is a little bit too hard for me. The Quran is much more smoother and much more understandable, and we read it and generations after generations, so we are familiar with most of its vocabulary as Arabs. And if you want to simplify things, you might say that The Arabs are these countries, Iraq, Syria, Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco. Of course, the Arabic world includes more than that. And the Arabic, to try to simplify, or as a first approximation, might say it's the language of the Quran. But the linguists have defined it as in a state of diglossia. That is, you have a high level and a lower level. The high level is that of the classical Arabic, and then the lower level is that of the dialects. And here Michael Hart, in his interesting, very interesting book called The 100, he said if it were not for the Quran that preserved the Arabic language, it would have split into mutually unintelligible languages. Just like what happened to the Latin language, it split into Italian, French, Spanish, Italian. They may not understand each other, but because of the Quran, we still understand each other from Iraq to Morocco, as I said. Now, the pre-Islamic period was dominated by those great poets. Some put the number of 7, al-Mu'allaqat Saba. They were very eloquent people. And then the Islamic era is naturally represented by the life of the Prophet. He's the ideal example of Islam. And finally, as I said, you have these ideologies that dominated the 20th century, maybe even before, when the French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte invaded invaded Egypt. I better stop because I'm starting to mix up things. No, he invaded Egypt and imposed the Code Napoleon. And that was a substitute for Sharia, for the Islamic law. So let me just summarize very quickly. This book, I hope, is helpful. I will give you the link at the end. For those who are interested in knowing about the Arabs, about their language, about their history, the language is Semitic language, VSO, non-concatenative language. I will explain these things later. And the history is pre-Islamic, Islamic, and post-Islamic. And this mentality of procrastinating things, it's beautifully sung in Salvatore Adamo's Inshallah.
Le chemin mène à la fontaine, tu voudrais bien remplir ton seau. Arrête-toi, Marie-Madeleine, pour ton corps ne vaut pas l'eau. Inch'Allah, Inch'Allah.